First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And yeah, basically, this is a very interesting article that was put in our group chat. I was reading it last night, but the Spirit had it to where, Lord willing, I'm going into it now. And it's something to definitely be aware of and keep in mind as this energy crisis progresses further and further. Now it's threatening, pretty much the energy grid in these different parts, of Europe, starting here with Berlin. Okay, now as you can see, it says Europe's winter of discontent, and interestingly enough, that term, dark winter, it was put out there. I believe Biden said it, and now we're starting to see signs, of what looks like a dark winter. So it says Europe's winter of discontent. Berlin police drawing up emergency plans for possible energy grid collapse. You hear that? I'm gonna read it again. It says Berlin police drawing up emergency plans for possible energy grid collapse. So now let's read into it a little bit. It says here police in the German capital of Berlin are preparing for emergency plans in anticipation of a possible collapse of the energy grid over the winter. The police force responsible for Berlin is currently drawing up emergency plans in the event of the city's energy grid collapsing. I mean, and it has to be really bad, right? If you're drawing plans anticipating this to happen, if it didn't have a at least some chance of happening, then you wouldn't need to take such measures. But as they see where it's going, as it's getting worse and worse, it's a possibility, and it might not just be in Berlin. So it says, with officers in Germany increasingly multicultural capital anticipating riots and looting over the winter months if the worst should occur. And the regular police are not going to be enough. They're going to need to send in, if the grid collapses, all hell is breaking loose, inflation is through the roof, people are looting and rioting and murdering and all of these things. They're not, regular police ain't going to handle that. They're going to need to send in special forces, United Nations troops, or, FEMA troop, whatever, you know. I mean, it's in Germany, but they have some next level above just their regular police. So it says other officials across Germany have already warned of possible social unrest over the coming months as people are left unable to heat their homes, with big wigs frequently using the country's right wing as a scapegoat for the existential energy problems the German state is now facing as a result of green agenda policies and the Ukraine war, which even the IMF, I forgot who it was from the IMF, but they came out and said that is looking like, Europe is looking to be seeing some social or civil unrest, which is just another way of saying riots and chaos, and people be Second Ezra 15, put it like that. All right, which when you read Second Ezra the 15th chapter from, really the whole chapter, but right around focusing around the 14th verse onto around the 20th verse, that's describing pretty much a time of civil unrest, where martial law would need to be put in place. Okay, as people break into other people's houses and all of these things. But see, darkness is also about to hit this place. Okay, and darkness brings fear. So it says, according to a report by Dywell, law enforcement in the country's capital are now anticipating that they will be forced to deal with various levels of social unrest as a result of the ongoing crisis. Once again, we're watching, as the scriptures say, measuring the times diligently, and we know social unrest on high levels is prophetic, is biblical, it's been prophesied. So now we're watching very closely, because there's so many different. Right now, it looks like one of the main things that can lead to that is this ongoing crisis of energy. But there's also inflation. There's also the food crisis. It's looking like these things are all getting ready to hit at the same time. Okay. Now it says under the plans, separate preparations have been made to help police deal with public backlash resulting from raised prices and energy rationing, both of which officials reportedly now view as being likely. And now all of a sudden, what we've been telling you does not sound so crazy after all, right? Because now you're starting to see, oh, wow. Ah, wow, that's crazy. But that's what's happening, right? They're preparing, and in essence, they're gonna be receiving backlash because they're gonna have to, raise prices, ration energy. We told you that when rations come, okay? You need to start watching more of these post-apocalyptic movies and get a better visual. No, it's not gonna do it complete justice, but it'll give you some visual at least as to how people, how the masses react when there's these crises that are happening. It says contingency plans are also being established for the purpose of dealing with the entire energy grid in the city collapsing. And that wouldn't that be a time unlike any other? Not just in Berlin, but it just, because say it gets so bad where the whole EU grid just goes down. One starts over here, then spreads, and then boom, majority of the world is in darkness now. That's gonna be I mean, sheesh, right? That's gonna be like what the plague the Lord hit Egypt with, but on a world scale. See, so it says here, contingency plans are being established for the purpose of dealing with the entire energy grid in the city collapsing. And when the energy grid goes down, it's not just your lights that go off. Okay, and when that happens, yeah, you're gonna see all hell because people are not used to these conditions. It says with the police reportedly believing that this would result in both rioting and looting. And what comes along with rioting and looting? Everything else. Okay? Assault, murder, theft, which goes under looting, breaking, burglary, all of these things. It says and this don't like I always say, man, don't look at it. Oh well, that's all the way in Germany. That's in Berlin. That crisis is coming all around. It might start one place, but it's gonna definitely hit this place as well. It says to help deal with this, police are currently sourcing emergency generators to power their operations, as well as satellite phones that will continue to function even during a blackout. A spokesman for the police reportedly told Die Welt that it goes without saying that such plans are being drawn up by law enforcement in the city, with the source noting that officials frequently plan for various emergency scenarios in case they do end up occurring, which, as always, we have to watch and see, okay? Because this is what they're saying, but we got to watch and see. Now, here's another interesting part, right? Which is another article, but Lord willing, if the spirit permits, I might go into that later. But this is basically on some Gray State. For those that are not familiar, if you look up Gray State, the trailer, you'll see it, right? It says those taking the German government to task over the ongoing gas crisis have been branded the new enemies of the state. When you hear that term, enemy of the state, you already know what you're not about to be in the NWO. You already in the NWO. Okay? They already started using those terms, New World Order, and now they're branding people that are basically trying to hold the government accountable over this gas crisis as enemies of the state. You know what that means? That means what they if what you're saying is not what they're saying, you're an enemy of the state. If they tell you to do something, you don't want to do it, you're an enemy of the state. That's what that enemy of the state brand comes with. Okay? It's in essence being able to label a regular civilian as a terrorist because they don't agree with what the state, all right, is doing. And this is they do everything gradually. This is just a step in one direction. It says by one government minister in the country. It says while by no means being guaranteed to happen in the coming months, the possibilities of more militant energy rationing as well militant right? Militant energy rationing, as well as rolling blackouts, remain a real concern as German authorities fail to get a grip on the country's current energy crisis. And they're not just worrying about energy, there's also that inflation. So are we seeing the beginnings of a Weimar Republic times, I don't know, a certain really large number? We just might be. Originating out of green agenda ideology, that resulted in the country becoming almost totally reliant on Russian gas exports. Moscow's decision to largely stop supplying the European market in the wake of Russo Western sanctions war over Ukraine has left Germany in the lurk, with a number of officials in the country warning of societal unrest should people be left unable to properly heat their homes. Now, isn't that interesting, right? You push this green agenda ideology that forces you to rely on Russia's gas, and then you turn around and sanction Russia to now where they stop supplying you with the gas that you are totally relying on. What did you expect would happen? Various government bigwigs have, in particular, voiced fears that the German right could end up making massive gains in popularity as a result of the crisis, with one official tasked with maintaining the integrity of German democracy, even labeling members of the public who wish to resist the government or the country's government as enemies of the state. There you go. It's a gradual introduction, and they will eventually normalize that term, enemies of the state. And as they normalize, it's like how they normalize conspiracy theorists. Now, like they demonize the term, and once they label you under that, that's it. That's all they need to do. So enemies of the state, you're gonna start to see that more and more. And it's not just gonna be a label. It's gonna be a label, just like how you have terrorists. When you hear terrorists, there's actions that are associated with that. Actions that people perceive terrorists to take, but also actions as to what to do to them, right? So there's going to be actions associated with that term, enemies of the state. And you're going to realize just how draconian things are about to get. Despite this dire situation, senior politicians have been extremely reticent, and let's look that word up and get some synonyms. Okay. So it says here, not revealing one's thoughts or feelings readily, right? Withdrawn, reserved, introverted, restrained. Okay, so tight-lipped. It says to U-turn on the green agenda policies partially responsible for causing the energy crisis in the first place, with authorities still aiming to largely take out of service the country's three remaining nuclear power stations, this being likely to increase grid instability and further reduce energy dependence. I mean, if you can't see how deliberate this is, how can you want to do this green ideology, whatever, whatever, making you more dependent on Russia. Then you put sanctions on Russia to where they, knowing that they're gonna stop providing you with the gas that you're so dependent on. And then now your nuclear power stations that you have, you're trying to take out the remaining three of them, knowing that's gonna increase grid instability. What? And then if anybody speaks out against it, they're an enemy of the state. So they pretty much want you to watch the deliberate demise of your country or of your city. And if you speak out against it, you're an enemy of the state. You just got to be quiet and let them do what they want to do. And they're moving fast. It says an alternative plan, because it's getting to the point where Revelation 12 and 12, they don't care now whether you know what's going on or not. Or they're just going to, oh, you know what's going on. Okay, you're an enemy of the state. Okay, so it's shifting to that point where it's not about, oh, no, you didn't see what you thought you saw. That's not what it is. Forget about it. No, now it's, well, yeah, it's exactly what you saw, but I mean, what are you gonna do about it? So it says an alternative plan to keep some of the plants in so-called cold reserve should they be needed, has meanwhile been slammed as being technically not feasible by a major energy supplier in the country. And Yeah, that's pretty much it on this article. So I will link this in the description box. You can get access to it, and have it for yourself. But pretty much, as you can see, that's the level that's escalating to, where now their police are anticipating. I mean, social unrest. They've already put that down, but now they're anticipating a total grid collapse, and you know what's going to happen with that. Now, this is the book of Second Ezra, chapter 15, verse 1. It says, "Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy." Which, what is prophecy? Prophecy, well, according to the scriptures, biblical prophecy are the things that were written before time to happen at a later point in time. You have some prophecies that have already happened, that have already been fulfilled, and others that are yet to be fulfilled, that we're living in the time of their fulfillment as we speak. Okay, so our job is to speak those words of prophecy onto the people, primarily the nation of Israel. Okay, it says, which are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans? All right, predominantly. So it says here, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord. So the reason we understand these scriptures and understand prophecies and are able to break this down and link this here is not of us. Okay, it's the Spirit of the Lord. It says, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. So when these prophets of old got these visions of the future, the Lord had them write it down, had them scribe it down, and had it preserved for our time. Why? Because they are faithful and true. And if they're faithful and true, then we need to know what they are and understand them, so we can know how to survive in these times. Fear not the imaginations against thee. Let not the incredulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee. Why? Because the Lord already knew that you're gonna have people. This isn't something that everybody's gonna understand or receive. So you're gonna have people that are gonna come against it and say all manner of things. But as the Lord said, don't worry about that. Don't let their disbelief trouble you. Okay? They're gonna speak against you, but that's okay. Because they're the ones the judgment is coming for. And they have to be in that state of mind so that the Lord is justified in bringing the judgment upon them. For all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. So you don't got to worry about them, because they already got their judgment coming. Behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. So what do we know according to prophecy is going to be taking place? The sword, which are death by weapons. Okay, again, you can categorize a gun under that. You can put an actual sword under that. You can put any weapon that pretty much like a handheld weapon. In the ancient world, it was mainly a sword, a dagger, whatever. Okay, but now the modern day sword is the equivalent of a gun. All right, famine, lack of access to food. People are going to be starving out when they shut off these cities and there's no food coming in, and people are starving and have to resort to eating each other, called cannibalism. That's a result of famine. So under famine, you know that a subcategory is going to be cannibalism, and in order to commit cannibalism, there's going to be murder, which goes under death. It says, and destruction. For wickedness hath exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. So the reason these things are coming is because wickedness has polluted the whole earth. So the Lord needs to cleanse the earth, all right, by way of the destruction that He's bringing. Okay, aka the pale horse in Revelation the 6th chapter. Now this is Deuteronomy 2 and 25. Now this the Lord did. He caused this to happen back during the time of Moses, and Joshua and the children of Israel back then. But He's gonna do it again. All right, He's gonna have that apply again by way of His judgments in this time. All right, this is Deuteronomy 2 and 25. It says, this day will I begin to put the dread of thee and the fear of thee upon the nations that are under the whole heaven, who shall hear report of thee and shall tremble and be in anguish because of thee. Which, like I said, this happened back then. When you read up above and read down below, you'll see the context of what time period this is talking about. But as the scriptures say, 2nd Ezra 16, then shall they be known who are my chosen. Okay, and so people they're gonna fear, because they're gonna know that it's our power, okay, that's causing all these things to happen. And being that we are the prophets of the Lord, they're gonna fear as well. All right. In addition to that, the Lord is gonna bless His men with spiritual power. And via the different plagues that are going to be hitting the planet Earth, leading into Luke 21 and 26, it says, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. So, in the time of the destruction, all the things, because remember, it's going to be things that people have never even been able to imagine before. Like, that's how bad it's going to be. They're not prepared for that mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. People are not prepared for that. So seeing these things, witnessing these things, experiencing these things, for some people is going to be too much. That they're not going to, just the sight, just looking at these things alone is going to be enough to take them out. So imagine how horrific it's going to be, all right, as these calamities progress further and further. As the Lord said in Matthew 24, that these are the beginning of sorrow. So if this energy grid goes down, whether it does or whether it doesn't, that doesn't stop. That's not going to stop the famines and destruction and death from happening. It's still going to happen regardless. Okay, but that's why we're watching to see, what is going to lead to what, which is going to lead to the fulfillment of these prophecies. So you got to be aware and alert. Anyway, with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.